This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Nermeen Sheikh.
We turn now to Syria, where Reuters reports airstrikes killed 12 and injured dozens more Tuesday at a market in the northwest province of Idlib. This is the latest in a Russian-backed offensive by Syria's military in northwestern Syria that's killed more than 600 people and at least 157 children in the past 3 months, according to the Syrian Network for Human Rights. The attacks have reportedly targeted schools and hospitals. More than 500,000 people have died in Syria since the uprising against the regime of Bashar al-Assad began in 2011. As demonstrations broke out, a young economics student began filming on a cell phone in her native city of Aleppo. For 5 years, Waad al-Kateab documented her own life and the lives of those around her as the Assad regime intensified its brutal response to the protests. She eventually gathered hundreds of hours of footage. In the course of her stunning award-winning documentary feature titled For Sama, Waad falls in love with one of the last remaining doctors in Aleppo, gets married and has a baby girl, Sama, to whom the film is dedicated. This is the film's trailer.
Aleppo, my city. I keep filming. It gives me reason to be here. This is insane. We're getting this every day. None of us had any idea. Hello, Dr. Hamza. Our old lives would be changed forever. Hamza, I'm pregnant.
Sama.
I've made this film for you. I need you to understand what we were fighting for. I love you so much, even more than the snow. There's lots of airstrikes today, right? Sama, I know you understand what's happening. I can see it in your eyes. You never cry like a normal baby would. That's what breaks my heart.
The hospital has been bombed.
My daughter's in there. Sama, will you ever forgive me?
That's the trailer of the critically acclaimed award-winning feature documentary For Sama. It's directed by Waad al-Kateab and Edward Watts. The film will be released in the United States next Thursday, screening first in New York, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. To talk more about the film and the war it documents, we're joined here in New York by the director, Waad al-Kateab. Also with us, Dr. Hamza al-Kateab, a doctor and co-founder and former director of the Al Quds Hospital in Aleppo. He is Waad's husband and features prominently in the film. We welcome you both to Democracy Now! I know you just flew in from London here to New York. It is great to have you with us. Go back to your time as a student of economics and your decision to go to Aleppo to start to document what was happening there.
Thanks for having us first, and it's really very heartbreaking and sad, to go back to that great moments when the uprising started in Syria, when we felt that really we don't just can change our life, but also we will change the world. And the feeling, the hope that we have, the powerful about we can really do something to change our life and the dream of the freedom, all these great principles that we were grow up on, but we didn't thought that we will have it in Syria as country. And that moment were just very, very important for us. And it was very also, there's a lot of misunderstanding and misinformation because of the propaganda by Assad regime at that moment. So it was just really important to document this moment and save it to the history, to our life, to the next generation.
Where were you born?
I was born in Aleppo.
And talk about what happened. Start with the protests in 2011.
It was just normal life. I was a student. Like I had that dream about when I will finish, I will graduate from economics, and then I will go maybe to Germany to have master and start like a new life outside, and then I will be back later. But I didn't have that feeling of belong to Syria as a country, and I wasn't feel that I'm this citizen, Syrian citizen. We weren't that proud of before. And then when the revolution started, we just felt that we are in the moment where we can really change our life and make the country that we want, build our own life in the way that we really respect ourselves and respect the people we have, respect the government that it should be for us. And we've just started protesting. With the same time, everyone who was activist was trying to make a rule for this cause, and that's why I felt I can film. And I love filming. I really believe in the picture, and that's why I just started document these moments. But no one had any idea about what the future will hold for us.
You never stopped. You just seemed to have that camera on all the time.
Yeah, and really it was very like gradually to the moment that you don't think about what you are trying to do, or why you're doing this. It's more about just living the life and saving these moments, because you feel that at any moment it could be ended. You could be killed like by bombing, by shelling, by anyone arrested you because you are just oppositions. And this is just was very, very important.
Well, I mean, the film is extraordinary on many levels, but also the sense it's quite visceral. I mean, the audience feels as though they're literally immersed in the war. And it's also told from a perspective that's very unusual for a so-called war film. You're not on the front lines, you're in a hospital, you're in the room in which you're living with your husband and then your little girl. And at one of the screenings in England, Channel 4 host Jon Snow said, in fact, that you captured a female perspective of a masculine war.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
It's more about, I feel everything was really normal. I had no idea about I will make this film, but I just feel like believed in the picture that this is really important to be saved. More than anything about, I will do a film, I will speak in perspective of a woman or a female or a mother or whatever. I just was trying to live my life normally. And it was just a life mixed between the journalist and like a journalist in one moment and a mother in a second moment. And the film was just mixed between these two feelings about normal life under the war. And as I was really amazed with the life there, how powerful people were there, how the sadness, how was the happiness, everything I was seeing in my own eyes, I just felt that this is really, should people outside know about this and know about the war in Syria? It's not just war, it's more about life, and people deserve to be alive.
And Hamza, let me just, you were a doctor when the protests began, but you were based in Western Aleppo. And when rebels took control, the opposition took control of Eastern Aleppo, you made the decision to move. Why?
Because of, we've seen a lot of areas where the oppositions were taking control in Syria, and the regime immediately started shelling it with different kinds of weapons. I've seen in Daraa, in Homs. So when it was announced that east part of Aleppo is liberated from the regime and it's controlled by the opposition, all the images I had of that, YouTube clips that I've seen through the previous year of children, people being shelled and attacked. And then when I decided just to go there, I'm an activist, I was protesting, and I'm a doctor, so that's the place that I need to be there.
So, Dr. Hamza al-Kateab, you weren't married at the time you were filming. You sort of fell in love through that lens of your camera, I think. And Can you describe the setting up of the Al Quds hospital? And who was brought in there? Who were you treating?
The first time I moved to east part of Aleppo, there was it was very chaotic situation. Sort of a shelling. People don't used to do that. A lot of people fled out of the city to the countryside or to western part of Aleppo because they don't know what's going to happen. And after 2 months, a lot of civilians came back to Aleppo, and the population reached in 2013 it reached 1.5 million people in east part of Aleppo. And that's when I and a group of doctors decided that we should set a hospital that's a non-trauma hospital. It should be oncology, pediatric, internal medicine, cardiology, because most of the focus of the NGOs was about trauma and surgeries, while there are so many other diseases that people might had. And that's when we decided to start Al Quds Hospital, and it was previously a private hospital, but it was abandoned, nobody was there. And I went there with 2 midwives, 5 nurses, and a few volunteers. And we start to remove the dust, clean everything. It started with 1 clinic and 8 beds ward. And by the end of 2016, we had around 56 beds and so many specialties, and the staff was 110 people. So the main idea was to have a non-trauma hospital, but it ended as the last hospital in Aleppo.
And when you founded the hospital, because of course the Assad regime targeted hospitals as well as schools, and 8 out of the 9 hospitals in Aleppo had been destroyed. Now, was that the case when you started this hospital? And the fact that you recounted this joke in Aleppo, if you want to be safe, you should go to the front line. That's the safest place in Aleppo. So could you explain that and what exactly the situation was with medical care when you started Al Quds?
We started Al Quds at the end of 2012, beginning of 2013, and at that time there was maybe 5 hospitals in Aleppo. The number increased with more NGOs trying to provide help. The first time we had witnessed a hospital attack was in a hospital called Dar al-Shifa. That was also at the beginning of 2013 or the end of 2012, and a nurse and a doctor was killed at that attack. And throughout the years, the regime has become more aggressive. So it was starting with a mortar attacks, and then aircrafts attack, and then the Russian interfere, and that was the most brutal thing. And in the middle of 2013, we realized that the regime is not trying to attack the militias or the opposition fighters. He's trying to break the will of the people, that there is no way you can live out of my control. So the main target was the hospitals, health facilities, bakeries, electricity, power supplies, schools. And that's why we know that people who were living there, there are several massacres happened at the city, but the front line, there's no bullets even, nothing happened. And we start to know okay, you want to have a rest, just go to the front line and you will be
Let's go to another clip from the film for Sama.
Sama.
الأمور صارت كتير سيئة.
Things have got so bad now.
أبوكي مداوم كل الوقت.
Your dad can't leave the hospital,
لهيك نحن عايشين هون هلا.
so we live here now.
هاي غرفتنا.
This is our room.
هدول اللوحات مخبين وراهم.
Behind those pictures are sandbags to protect from shelling.
نعم روحي.
Yes, I'm coming.
عم نعمل جهدنا.
We do our best to make it feel like home.
That's a clip from For Sama, the baby who was born in the midst of this war, Waad, that you document from the moment you see your pregnancy test to telling Hamza to raising your child in Aleppo.
Yeah.
Sama was in the point that she was the hope of our small family and small life. And the same things was about all the children who were born in that area and in that place, which is for a long, long time. There was many people who have children and trying just to live normal life under this bad circumstances. And it was just, like Syrian people wants to live in Syria in a normal way as much as they can under all this shelling and bombardment, and just about how the violence was around, how Assad regime and then later on the Russian were trying just to kill, as Hamza mentioned, the people well and the people like feeling about life in the city more than about really having a fighting against the fighters who were there.
And can you say, Waad, as you said, the regime did not target the rebels. Can you talk about how the composition of the opposition to Assad changed, and that some areas in Aleppo were in fact held by ISIS and al-Nusra? How did you work with those areas? Did you go into those areas? And what was responsible for those people coming in and, as you say, trying to hijack the revolution?
It's more about, let's say the war in Syria was between Assad and opposition against Assad. But the main things about how the regime was trying not just to have like attacking these areas, but also he was trying to increase having al-Nusra and ISIS groups in the area. And as we as Syrians, we see that as facts, and many other centers and study cases was very clear about this issue, that in 2012 the regime released all the people who were in their prisons, which they became later leaders in al-Nusra and ISIS group. So it was more about, the regime knows what is going on, and he was pushing them to be like armed and to be more Islamics, and also the violence, which is indirect way to make people more like have that bad reaction against what's going on. So people can really don't have the right way to do their own like defense against what was happening. And we lived with these people in many places. We faced ISIS in 2013, and many people who we know, they were arrested. And we too. I lost my cousin in 2013, and he's kidnapped by ISIS, and really we don't know anything about him until now. So ISIS, al-Nusra, and the Assad was all against the real people, the activists who were having their own dream about the freedom and the democracy. And this is why the revolution started, and this is what we still need until now. And, it's more about like controlling the violence that was happening. And just the idea about, we left Syria 3 years ago. We were displaced out of Aleppo, and we've had all this experience about the shelling, bombing, and every bad situation, the siege, and the threatened to be death or displaced. And now, 3 years later, the same scenario happening again in the last place in Idlib, which is like just unbelievable that how the world still watching this and just speak about ISIS, which is really did nothing comparing with the regime violence. And if we just go to any center which they document all this death and like bad crimes.
We're going to have to leave it there, but we'll do part 2. Put it online at DemocracyNow.org. Waad al-Kateab and Hamza al-Kateab. I'm Amy Goodman with Nermeen Sheikh.